today I just wanted to talk to you about Sayu and why I think she's a really good character. She's a really good healer, and why you might want to pull for her in a future banner, maybe in the one upcoming, possibly. And if you're on the fence about building her, if you already have her, so let's just get into it. So we'll start with her bottom passive. Sayu has a passive called Silencer's Secret, and it's basically, it lets you sneak up on crystal flies or like animals in general, but or insects and stuff like that. But those crystal flies, for making condensed resin, you can sneak up on them without them flying away, basically. The tricky part is when you grab a crystal fly, I guess all the others realize that their best friend's gone, because the second you catch that first crystal fly, the others start to run away. So just keep that in mind. But it is really useful and really handy, and I do like that, and I do keep her in my party just to farm those for when I need condensed resin. For the sake of the video, I'm just going to show you a little example of the crystal flies. They don't run away, but the second I catch this one, they get alerted. So just keep that in mind. So for her second passive, I've tried to say this a little bit easier in a few takes, but basically when healing a character, it will also heal characters near that healed character for 20% of the amount of the HP. It's a little tricky on the wording there, but yeah, it's basically what it does. So for her third passive, it's pretty solid. When she triggers her swirl reaction, she also heals all your characters and nearby allies for 300 HP. She will also heal an additional 1.2 HP for every point of elemental mastery she has. It can be triggered once every 2 seconds. So it's not a bad one. It's pretty good. Alright, so now I just want to talk about some small little neat things you might not know about Sayu that I kind of found out while playing her. So let's jump into that. So for her E ability, or her skill for people who don't play on PC, outbeats Mona's and Ayaka's speed, and by that I mean it's faster than their sprinting ability, and it does not consume any stamina, which is really nice. So that's just a neat little trick and some info about her if you didn't know that already, or if you have her and you haven't used her. And yeah, another neat little trick about Sayu that you might not know is if you infuse her skill ability with cryo, you can do her roly-poly mode on top of water. It's really cool. I might cut to a clip of it if I have a clip of it. But yeah, just a neat little trick. Now let's jump into her talents. So to start this off, I just want to say that her healing scales off attack percentage and elemental mastery, but unless you have C6 Sayu, I would recommend just focusing on attack if you want the healing to be stronger. So for her burst, she summons a Daruma that sets a decent sized AoE healing effect, and it can damage your enemies. And again, the healing scales off attack, but you can heal from elemental mastery from the passive I mentioned earlier in the video. So basically, when summoning her Daruma, if your character's HP is above 70%, you will attack enemies instead of healing, and if it's below, you will instead heal. If there's no enemies nearby, your Daruma will just start to heal you, regardless of the percentage of your HP. One cool thing to note is if you have C1 Sayu, you will ignore the 70% below or above limit, and instead attack and heal your characters at the same time. So that's a sweet constellation to have if you can get it, which when I go over to the constellations, which we will in this video, I'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, that's just something to note. So for her skill ability, which is by far just one of the most fun abilities I've ever experienced in this entire game. It's what made me even want to pull for Sayu. So when pressing her skill, she'll enter a whirlwind state for a second, and then she pops out and does an animo kick, which is pretty neat. When holding her skill, you can spin around in her ball form for about 10 seconds without consuming any stamina, as I mentioned before, and it deals constant animo damage, which is really, really nice, and can make some particles for her, which you do want, because her burst ability does take a lot to regen. Another side note to mention is her skill ability can infuse with any element it comes in contact with, like hydro, pyro, cryo, and so on. So that's really, really useful. Another thing is when you choose to hold her skill ability, you only have to hold it for about 2 seconds, and then you can let go, and it'll just continuously keep doing her roly-poly mode. So you just keep in mind you don't have to hold that down, because I did that for a little bit. But yeah. I'll probably cut to a clip that I have of me killing the cryo flower. Hopefully I do. Hopefully I remember to edit that in. But if I do, that'll be right after this. So I'm going to start the fight out by popping Chun-Li shield, and then I'm going to do a little Bennett. And then spin to win. Now, as far as her talent priority goes, I think it could kind of go both ways. If you're needing a good healer, obviously probably focus her burst. And if you are kind of just building her for fun, and maybe you know, you do want to do more damage with her roly-poly mode, then, you know, focus that first. But, you know, again, it's kind of self-explanatory. You're lacking healing, go for the healing first. If you're not, you can do the other. It's kind of just what you feel like. And as far as her normal attack, I mean, I only have it at 3. I just did that for no reason. Unless you're trying to run a main DPS on Sayu, which you can do, you know, I would just focus on her healing and her skill. So now let's jump into her artifacts, and if it's not already pretty obvious, you know, she's an animo character, and she does a lot of swirl damage, so you definitely want to run the Verdescent set, and I'm not going to really go into any other sets that you can run with her, because, to be honest with you, this is just the set that you want to run on her. And it's really, really strong for a lot of animo characters. It gives you 15% animo damage bonus, but also increases your swirl damage by 60%, decreases the opponent's elemental resistance to whatever element you swirl by 40%, which is really, really nice. You can run Noblesse Oblige or Maidens, but I'm not going to go into that because you really should just run Verdescent. And you know, you can do kind of some two-piece kind of situation, but yeah, you should just run Verdescent. So for her artifact stats, I'm going to try to keep this as easy as I can, short and simple. So for your main 3 stats, for her, you're going to want to focus attack, elemental mastery, and energy recharge. Depending on how you want to play her will change a little on how you should build her. But I would really just focus up on her elemental mastery if you can. I'm also not a great example of that. I'm lacking elemental mastery on her. You should probably, you know, get it up to 400, 500 plus. But the way I'm building her is kind of just for fun. I don't really need a healer. But I just wanted to mess around with her ball mode, and I don't have an elemental mastery artifact on her right now, but yeah, and I have a weapon for energy recharge, but we'll get into the weapons in a minute. So back to her stats, just keep in mind, for her healing and her roly-poly mode, it does scale off attack, so don't just replace everything with elemental mastery. But her passive that she has, that we talked about before, lets you scale with elemental mastery too. So they're equally important on her. If you can get energy recharge on the substat, it's really good because it does take a lot to charge her burst ability for the healing. If you're lacking the energy recharge, you can always use the claymore, or you can use a claymore that has energy recharge, and vice versa if you're lacking elemental mastery. So just, kind of switch out what you need and what you don't need, weapon wise, and what you're lacking on substats, that kind of thing. So since we're talking about our weapons, I guess we'll jump into our weapons. So the weapons I'm going to talk about for her really depend on the artifacts, meaning if you're lacking elemental mastery or energy recharge, you can make that up with the weapon. Like with a lot of other characters, you do the same thing. So let's go ahead and start with the 3-star option, which is the Bloodstained Greatsword. So the Bloodstained Greatsword is surprisingly, I could be wrong, but I believe is the highest elemental damage out of all the claymores you can use for her. But it's the lowest attack, or one of the lowest attacks. It's a great low budget option for free-to-play players. So I highly recommend it if you are lacking on the elemental mastery. It's a great sword, regardless of, the refinements you have. For her second weapon, the Range Slasher is another great second option if you're lacking the elemental mastery, but you're needing a little bit more attack, or you want a little bit more attack and you have both weapons. But it does have a little bit less, probably 100 or so, or maybe a little bit less. I haven't done the math on it, but it does have less elemental mastery than the Bloodstain, but it does have more attack. So just depending on what you need and what you want, those are great options for elemental mastery. Another really good 4-star option is the Favonius Greatsword. So if you're lacking energy recharge and you have plenty of elemental mastery, this will be a solid option for you. And plus the ability on the sword, depending on your refinement rank, you have a certain percentage ranging all the way up to 100%. 100% chance to make a small amount of elemental particles, which will regenerate 6 energy. So that's super nice. Another great option is the Sacrificial Greatsword, which is what I'm just using on her right now. If you're lacking energy recharge as well. But again, it's just another option if you would rather have this substat versus the other substat. This one basically just lets you have a chance or a possibility to reset her cooldown when going out of her E. So basically when you do that kick after holding her E or touching her E, you can have a chance to reset that. So that's just really nice and fun to have. So another option, if you do have it just laying around, is the Wolf's Gravestone. I do use it in the cryo clip that I did show. And it's just an overall great weapon. It's really good on a lot of Claymore users. Has a really, really high base attack. It gives you attack percentage. So if you want to use that, you can. If you're trying to do more damage with her skill ability, this is a great option. It's overall just a solid weapon. And as far as the other claymores go, they're all, all the other attack claymores, they're all still really, really good depending on what kind of substat you want on it or what it's doing. Just kind of fill it out and build it how you want. I'm just kind of giving you probably the better options for her. But yeah. Another thing that I just want to add in that I didn't add in because I did just get this weapon because of the banner being out and it's very new. This is a great option for her too if you do want to do more burst damage with her, because that's basically what this sword does. But yeah, this isn't a bad option by any means if you do have it and you do have some refinements for it and you want to use it. It's not bad on her. But with all that being said, basically just probably equip the weapon of whatever you're lacking. Again, I know I've probably said it a few times in this video, but if you're lacking elemental, use an elemental greatsword. If you're lacking energy recharge, that's basically what I can recommend with the swords. But yeah, so now let's just jump into our constellations. So for her constellations, her C1 is the only one I have. It's super useful But before I get into this, I want to keep in mind that she's still a very good character without any of the constellations. You don't need them by any means. If you can get them, or you're lucky enough to get them, that's great. And C1 is a really, really nice constellation. It's super useful. The C1 sort of is similar to the way Bennett's Elemental Burst, where his attack buff at C0, his HP is capped at 70%. So basically, her C1 will remove the HP cap it had for her healing and allow you to heal up to 100%. And on top of the healing being better, it'll also simultaneously attack your enemies on the field while it heals. So you just get a win-win. You're doing more damage, you're also getting the healing, and it's not capped. So C1, by far, if you're trying to get constellations for in the future, C1 is just a very, very solid constellation. You don't need to go any farther, really. If you want to, you can, but yeah. So for her second constellation, it's definitely, you really don't, it's not a must need. It's just a nice little damage boost to her skill ability. It increases it by 3.3%, and when you hold it, you gain a 3.3% every 0.5 seconds you're in it. So overall, not needed, but you know, it's a nice little constellation. And C3 is just a level up on her burst, like a lot of other characters in this constellation. So we can move on from this. For her C4, it's a good one if you're wanting more energy for her. So she can recover 1.2 energy every time you trigger her swirl effect, and it can occur every 2 seconds. So that can be really nice if you are, you know, struggling with her energy recharge, which you shouldn't be if you build it correctly. But you know, if you are, for some reason, this is nice. And yeah. For her C5, it's just a skill level up again. So like a lot of other characters, so we'll just skip over this. And for her C6, it's interesting. It's definitely good. It's pretty good, actually. It really pushes you to build her full elemental mastery, and by that I mean, to sum this up, her Daruma will start to scale off elemental mastery, and that's pretty nice because it can increase your damage and your healing. But that basically sums it up. I'm not going to go into, you know, the details on trying to be more complicated with it, but that's basically what it does. And so if you get lucky enough to get C6, then you know you definitely want to push up your elemental mastery probably as far as you can go with it, because it would be a lot better and probably really, really good. I mean, not probably really, really good. It would be good. Well, thank you guys for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and possibly subscribe. That'd be nice. And thank you so much. This was my first YouTube video, so I was a little nervous, but I hope I did good, and hope everyone has a great day, and catch you later.